Part 31. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 303. Because she wanted to raise chickens and save eggs, Sukingyu thought about it and went to shopkeeper Ding. He has people there who often travel to various states and counties to help collect some chicks, so it should be more convenient than others. Moreover, seeing that his shop was packed with people from the mountains every day, he also felt stuffy. Find him something to do, give him something to do. Shopkeeper Ding took over the matter without any hesitation. Within a few days, Sukingyu received dozens of chicks. They were fluffy, crowded together, chirping, put in several baskets and sent over. The whole family was very happy and gathered around to watch. Xiaobao and Yaya were even more happy. The two puppies were raised by the little brother and sister into big dogs, and it was no longer fun. These chicks are cuter. One person gathered around, watching excitedly. Wow, it's so fluffy. It's so easy to touch. Oh, mother, it bites me. As soon as Xiaobao put his hand in, he was pecked by the chick. Everyone laughed. It's okay. It won't hurt the chicks to peck it, right? They are too small, so be gentle and don't hurt it. If it feels uncomfortable, it will peck the baby. Mom, I did it gently and didn't hurt them. Just touch it, don't pinch it. Sukingyu caught a chick and put it in his palm. He was nervous and excited at the same time. He grinned and stared at the chick happily. I want to reach out but dare not. He stared hard. Sukingyu doubted that he could watch it for a day. My boss. Huh, Sukingyu looked at Ling Qin. Oh, thank you for sending the chicks over. Ling Qin hurriedly waved her hand. What kind of thank you could she say? Ling Qin is the daughter-in-law of Ling Fenggu. Ling Fenggu usually collects medicines in the mountains. During the rest of his time, he takes his grandson to make medicines at the medical clinic in the market town. His old wife follows them to take care of their grandfather and grandson in the market town. His daughter-in-law stayed in the village with her granddaughter Qin. Often run both ways. These chicks were brought back by her mother and daughter. Boss, shopkeeper Ding collected a lot of chicken seedlings from outside and sold them in the shop. I saw many people buying them. Do you want to raise some in our village? There are many old people and children in Xinjiang, and everyone usually has work to do. Unlike other villages, there is no surplus labor to go hunting in the mountains. Moreover, the people in Xinjiang were not originally from the mountains. They couldn't hunt anything even if they went into the mountains without anyone. If the elderly and children can help raise some poultry, there will be no shortage of meat in the village on days when hunting is not required. Sukingyu didn't realize Ling Qin's underlying intention at first, only to hear that shopkeeper Ding had started a chicken business. A quick thought. He is indeed a businessman. He is very good at seizing business opportunities. There are many people in the mountains who are not good at hunting, but they still have the ability to raise some chickens. Why didn't she think of finding someone to collect some chicken seedlings from outside and sell them in the shop? Tisk tisk, let shopkeeper Ding get the upper hand again. Although the money is not much, it is also a business opportunity, right? And I can take this opportunity to buy chicken seedlings from neighboring counties, towns, and villages, and find out what those people need. Maybe I can do some business in the future, have some business, or hire some people from there. They are all resources. She was stupid again. Okay, tell everyone, if you have time and energy, you can raise her if you want. I have no objection. Ling Qin was very happy that she could raise some chickens, so she said, okay, I'll tell everyone later. In the blink of an eye, Mother Su and Mrs. Lu had prepared the nest for the chicks. Xiaobao and Yaya took the feeding job from Mother Su every day and took good care of dozens of chicks. The task of feeding water is not neglected. Whatever I eat, I will think of leaving it to the chicks. Make adults dumbfounded. Soon the spring tea will be picked. Sukingnao asked everyone to cut tea branches and plant tea trees and ash trees. Last year, Tong and others raised white wax insects well and got a lot of white wax, which allowed Sukingnao to get tens of thousands of taels of silver, and he also divided the profits generously among them. So it was just the beginning of spring, and Tong and others started preparations early. It is said that the more insect species there are, the more white wax will be obtained, so few people dare not neglect it. Sukingyu followed them for a few days and saw that their skills were skillful. It was obvious that they had gained experience in the past year. It seems that the number of insect species obtained this year will increase several times. Sukingnao couldn't help but feel happy when she thought that the white money could fall into her pocket to make up for the loss on her tea. When I turned around, I packed up a lot of food and sent it to these people's homes. Encourage them. Being valued by his boss made Tong and others more confident. Sukingyu arranged for the cuttings of tea trees and ash trees, and then led others to plant bamboo fungus in the bamboo forest, and pondered the cultivation of shiitake mushrooms in various caves. In the shops in Renzhou City, all kinds of sauces are sold very well. Last winter, even if there were thieves who caused trouble from time to time, the shop still made a profit of 200 to 300 taels a month. When thinking about growing fungi, Sukingyu wanted to make use of the resources in the mountains. I've taken advantage of this, but I don't want to see it go out of stock one day, I want to see it being supplied continuously. Without any experience, Sukingyu came up with an idea and let those who followed her explore it. No one has ever heard of fungi that can be grown. They are all born and nurtured, you can find them if you look for them in the mountains. Sukinjao knew that fungi could be cultivated, but she had no practical experience. He only mentioned an idea and made everyone want to get it done. I spent every day pondering in the woods and caves. A group of people cleared the weeds and shrubs in the bamboo forest, leaving only dead bamboo leaves and other decaying matter to expand the growing environment of the bamboo fungus. I don't know how to obtain the bacteria, but as the space for bamboo fungus to grow is larger, maybe its yield will increase. As for the mushrooms, Sukingnao just wanted to make use of those caves. But after hearing her idea, Guo and others felt that there was much to be done. Every day I take people in the cave to look at the light and the wind direction. There is no need to dig mushroom houses, these caves are natural mushroom houses. If the seeds are grown, how much mushroom sauce will be produced? If the boss is busy, let them do it. Guo asked people to go into the mountains to find dead wood with mushroom mycelium, and then carried it to the cave and raised it. They were also divided into different shifts, and there were people watching over them day and night. Sukingyu saw that they were doing well, so she didn't care. Because the winter wheat is about to be harvested. The yield of winter wheat grown in the mountains may not be comparable to that grown in fertile fields outside. But it is drought tolerant and live well. After a winter of soaking in snow and water, I am living well in the mountains. Halfway up the mountainside, I looked over and saw a vast expanse of yellow, which was very pleasing to look at. Before harvesting, the owners of each village gathered at the activity center of the market town, and everyone counted the acres of each village and the manpower required. After the statistics were completed, Sukingyu hung up the news about the need for wheat farmers outside the shop in Xinjianzai. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhyaoye 11U. Chapter 304. In the market town, now not only people from the allied villages come here from time to time to exchange what they have and check the news. People from other villages, mountain people from far away mountains, will also come over the mountains. In addition to buying some oil and salt, they also want to see if there is any new news and work that can earn some copper coins. Everyone lives in the mountains because they can't survive for various reasons. There is no household registration, no yellow book, no land, no house, no land deeds. People outside, the better ones call them mountain people, and the more unpleasant ones call them refugees. But they were once good people, and they also had houses, fields, and land. There is no news in the mountains. Everyone hid in the mountains, and they only knew about the death of the previous emperor when they came to the market town and saw the news posted. Therefore, mountain people from far and near have developed a habit of running to the market town to buy some daily necessities, oil and salt, and then check if there is any new news. As soon as Suqing posted the news that wheat farmers were needed, the mountain dwellers living in various places in the mountains immediately heard the news and moved. They ran from all the hills, men and women, filling the streets of the market town. Xinjiang village had already hired enough laborers from the 5 villages that had just moved here. Once the laborers were hired, the winter wheat was harvested. When the winter wheat was harvested in the mountains, Su's father and Xiangshang also took people to plant 60 hectares of early rice near Renzhou city. As soon as they finished planting, they rushed back to the mountains because the wheat was harvested. Although the yield of wheat is not as good as rice, it is the first time to do a double cropping experiment on one land. Whether it can succeed or not is of great importance to future planting. So everyone attaches great importance to it. Although Painian did not come, he sent someone to pass on a message early, asking Suqing to harvest the wheat and inform him of the situation. Not only Painian, everyone in the mountains is watching. If we can really make it work, there will be no shortage of food. We won't be afraid of one good year and one bad year. Even if the yield of mountain planting is low, 2 seasons can still be as much as the yield of the previous season. Everyone's eyes are shining. When they heard that wheat was harvested, they were all excited. Those who were selected as wheat farmers in other villages were very happy. They had 3 meals a day, food and accommodation, and could earn 25 coins a day. Who wouldn't rush to come? And the heads of the allied villages also wished they could grow in the wheat fields every day, eager to know the yield of wheat. As soon as the harvest was announced, the villages immediately started working enthusiastically. It took less than 10 days from the harvest to the harvest. The yield of each village was reported one after another. Some were more, some were less, but most were around 400 kilograms per mu. It was exciting. It's done. Suqing was stunned. This yield was higher than that of dry rice. With 2 crops per field, the yield per mu will soar to more than 1,000 caddies. Are you still hungry? White rice for 3 meals a day, fried dough sticks, steamed buns, steamed rolls, egg pancakes, noodles, pancakes, steamed buns, dumplings, whatever you want to eat. Cook in various ways, how can you not eat enough? The mountains were boiling. Who would have thought that not only grains grew in the mountains, but also so much? 2 crops per field. Better than outside. President, it's done. Ching'an, it's really done. More than 400 caddies per mu. Almost 1,000 caddies in 2 seasons. Suqing was also very happy. Seeing the leaders of the villages so excited, she couldn't help but pour a basin of cold water on them. You are so happy about only 400 kilograms. I heard that wheat in other places can grow to more than 1,000 kilograms. Rice can also produce 1,500 kilograms. What? So high? Are you kidding, President? Ching'an, where did you hear that? I have lived for most of my life, and I have never heard of such a high yield. That's right. I heard that there are fertile fields in the imperial farm that are looked after day and night by special servants, and the yield per mu is only 500 kilograms. I read it in a book, Suqing said. Well, the book is not accurate. That's all imagined by literati. How can the yield be so high? That's right. With 400 kilograms, I want to find a temple to burn incense and worship Buddha. Okay, as long as you are happy. Suqing discussed with the leaders of each village. Although the governor Pei and Godfather only collected 1 season's grain, Suqing still wanted to ask each village to pay another 10% of the grain and distribute it to the two of them with the help of the governor's mansion and godfather last winter. Whether it was for the public or for her own benefit, Suqing wanted to pay some grain to the two of them. I heard that my godfather had taken in a lot of people, so they should be short of grain. Lord Pei governs a state. If he wants the state to prosper and settle people's hearts, he must also ensure that the people under his rule are well fed. Perhaps he can call back all the people who have left their hometowns, and attract a few people from other places to settle in Renzhou. With more people, people's livelihood and economy can develop better. It should be. Yes, we now have 2 seasons of production. If we pay another 10%, we will still have more. Okay, I thank you all on behalf of the 2 adults. Suqing thanked the village chiefs. The village chiefs said a few humble words, which were what they should do, and Suqing didn't need to thank them. Suqing nodded and spoke again. After a year of experimentation, we have succeeded in 2 crops in one place. Our task this year is to work hard to increase the production of the 2 seasons. After returning to each village, see if there are good farmers in the village, experienced farmers who have ways to increase production, or if they have any good opinions or suggestions. Be sure to pay attention to them and come to the registration meeting. Then everyone will work hard to improve the output, will make everyone's wallets tighter. Well, I just like the feeling of a strong wallet. Who does not like? After the wheat harvest, the late rice in each village was planted immediately. After planting the rice, Suqing Nao arranged for people to transport the grain to Peinian and Mamingguan. After finishing these things, other grains were planted. In addition to growing staple foods, we still need to make good use of every piece of sloping land in the mountains and the land in front of and behind the house to grow other foods, such as various beans. In winter, we have to rely on various beans to grow vegetables and make tofu. Since making tofu and collecting beans from each village, it turns out that every family has almost no beans left. So each family hurriedly planted the beans again. Because beans are harvested in the mountains, farmers in villages near the mountains and counties and towns near Renzhou have also planted beans. This thing is easy to grow, and there is no need to pick the land. Once planted, some people paid a lot of money to harvest it, so everyone followed suit and planted a lot. After the late rice was planted, everyone was free. The wedding date of Xiu'er and Suqing has also arrived. After Xiu'er's father Batong came back, the heavy stone in Zongjai Master's heart was finally lifted. Originally, he didn't want to make a big deal out of it, but Batong insisted, so the Zongjai leader also made lively arrangements for Xiu'er and Baishu's marriage. Suqing's family all gave gifts. The 2 families became good friends, and the whole family went to Beijiazai to have a lively dinner and watch a wedding banquet in the mountains. Not gorgeous, but simple, lively, and festive. In the blink of an eye, less than half a month later, Suqing's wedding date had arrived. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 305. Suqing got married and was also in the village. The 2 houses were not far apart, so it was like living in another house. Suqing Nao looked at Su's father and mother and saw that they didn't feel sad about marrying a daughter, so she felt relieved. In the blink of an eye, Yaya was holding Xiaobeo's hand and watching the adults busy coming and going with lonely eyes. Suqing felt a little sad when she saw it. Then he took the 2 children out of the house. He led the 2 children up to the gate tower of the village. On the gatehouse, I led the 2 children to look at the village and the surrounding green hills. The 2 children had never been here before and were very excited. It took a while for the 3 of them to sit down on the gatehouse. Aren't Yaya happy? Suqing pulled Yaya to sit next to her and caressed her little face. When we first met Yaya, she was still in the arms of adults and could not speak. She was slender and thin, with no body fat, and she was almost 6 years old in a blink of an eye. Usually when adults are busy, they take their younger brother with them, wash and dress him, and play with him without disturbing the adults. They never fight over food and drink. It's painfully sensible. Yaya shook her head. I'm not unhappy. Don't you want me to get married? I'm going to marry you in the village. We can see her every day, right? After discussing it before, Yaya said she wanted to live at home with her brother instead of living with Sukingliu. Sukingliu initially disagreed, but Wei Fukang saw that her mother and daughter would be separated once they got married, so he said that they would live in the Suk family. Sukingliu hesitated again. The son-in-law owns a house, and if he lives in his in-law's house, he is afraid that others will gossip about him. Sukingliu felt that it would be better if Yaya stayed in the past, so that it would be easier for Sukingliu and Wei Fukang to develop a relationship. Anyway, most of their meals were at Su's house, but they just went back to sleep. It was more than 10 steps away, so why did they have to pick Yaya up? Then he persuaded Sukingliu. But Yaya seemed a little unhappy. Sukingliu saw that Yaya didn't speak and just shook her head. Just when she was about to ask her, she saw that the child was silently crying. Mom, sister is crying. Sister, why are you crying? Xiaobao doesn't understand, but Yaya is almost 6 years old. A child with a delicate mind and following the adults around has learned early on to appreciate the ways of the world. Sukingliu held her in her arms, caressed her little back, and comforted her silently. Sister, please stop crying, Xiaobao wants to cry too. When Yaya heard this, she quickly wiped away her tears. Sister didn't cry. Sister is obviously crying. After Xiaobao finished speaking, he glanced at Sukingliu and wanted to say, Mom, my sister is lying. Seeing Sukingliu glaring at him, she didn't say anything, turned around and wiped her sister's tears with her little hands. We Yaya are so sensible, everyone loves you. Your aunt is here, Sukingliu comforted her. Yaya turned around and lay in Sukingliu's arms. Xiaobao looked at his sister, then at his mother, and then squeezed into Sukingliu's arms. Sukingliu couldn't laugh or cry. He turned to Yaya and said, Yaya hasn't seen Dad, has she? Yeah, Yaya responded in a low voice. Don't be afraid, sister, Xiaobao has never seen his father. We don't want a father. We have a mother, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and many other people, but we don't want a father. Xiaobao thought that his sister missed her father, so she hurriedly opened her mouth to talk. It's okay not to have a father, and Xiaobao doesn't have a father either, so Xiaobao didn't even cry. I'm afraid your father doesn't want to beat you. The box of gold he sent you is still buried under our house. Sukingliu looked at Xiaobao, a little speechless. Tisk, this kid was so funny that she even forgot what she was going to say. Yaya blinked and looked at her brother. Yes, her brother doesn't have a father either. She couldn't make her brother cry, so she quickly wiped away her tears. Well, figured it out yourself? Sukingliu looked at Yaya, thought for a while, and decided to tell her some truth to save the child from being bored. Yaya, look, neither you nor Xiaobao have met Daddy, right? Yes, my sister and I have never met our father, and we don't want him. Sukingliu glared at him. Xiaobao, don't interrupt when you are talking. When Xiaobao saw that his mother had a serious look on her face, she quickly covered her mouth with her hands, leaving only her big eyes looking at Sukingliu. Mom, Xiaobao is silent. Sukingliu was afraid of scaring him, so she smiled at him. Xiaobao then put down his little hand, smiled sweetly at Sukingliu, then took his sister's hand and lay back in Sukingliu's arms. Sukingliu thought for a while and then said to Yaya, Yaya, you see, although you and Xiaobao have never met your father, We all love you, right? No one will bully you, right? Yaya nodded. Then, wouldn't it be nice to have one more person to care for Yaya? Yaya looked at her. Sukingyu felt a little sad when she saw the child looking at her in confusion. The child feels that her mother is leaving her and is uneasy. Yaya, look, although there is one more person beside your mother, she is still a mother. She won't want Yaya, right? Yaya nodded. Mom loved Yaya, and she told Yaya that if she didn't want to, she wouldn't get married. She didn't want her mother to be unhappy. Sukingyu felt a little relieved when she saw the child nodding. This is a sensible child. Look, Yaya, no matter what, mother will always love Yaya, right? That Uncle Wei, if he treats Yaya well, then Yaya will have one more person to love. If he treats Yaya badly, then Yaya just pretend that you can't see him. It's still the same as before, there are still so many people who love Yaya, right? Yaya thought about it, and it seemed that her second aunt was right. When my mother gets married, it's not like she doesn't love Yaya anymore. And if Uncle Wei loves Yaya, there will be one more person to love Yaya. If he doesn't love Yaya, then Yaya will pretend that he can't see him. It's still the same as before. She also has a mother, a second aunt, grandparents, uncles, and aunts who love her. After thinking about it, Yaya nodded heavily. Seeing that she had figured it out, Sukingyu smiled. Besides, Yaya is almost 6 years old and is an older child. She should sleep alone, right? The older child can no longer sleep with mother. Yaya blushed a little and lowered her head. Xiaobao looked at Sukingyu and couldn't hold it back. Sister, you can sleep with Xiaobao and my mother. The three of us sleep. My mother's bed and mine are big, as big as that. While talking, he gestured with his little hands. That's right, Yaya, don't you want to sleep with your brother? Yaya finally smiled and nodded heavily. I think, then I'll sleep with my brother. Okay, sleep with my sister. Okay, then you can't wet the bed. No. Xiaobao didn't wet the bed. My sister remembered it wrong. Xiaobao didn't wet the bed. The 3-year-old child also understood the embarrassment and started yelling loudly. Yes, Xiaobao didn't wet the bed. My sister remembered it wrong. It's just that my sister remembered it wrong. Xiaobao didn't wet the bed. Sister, please remember it next time. Good. As the siblings spoke, they started playing happily on the gatehouse. Sukingyu, who followed, covered her mouth and cried under the gate. If Yaya doesn't want to, she won't get married. Yaya is her lifeblood and she doesn't want to see her child unhappy. Don't cry, there is your sister here. After you two get married, you can go back to our house to eat and sleep there. It's only a dozen steps away. You can hear every shout. Yaya will get used to it. Mother Su was on the side, choking and comforting. Sukingyu's wedding was more lively than Chiu's. Sukingyu burned a pair of bright red dragon and phoenix candles with white wax for them, which attracted countless people to come over and watch. I want a pair of dragon and phoenix candles like this when I get married in the future. I want it too, it's so festive. The village owners of Lianzai and some mountain residents all sent gifts. Painian and Mrs. Ma also sent heavy gifts. Ma Mingwen didn't tell him. Sukingyu invited Ma Xian and other village owners to come and have fun in the village. With the new people in the village, there were not enough tables and chairs. Everyone sat on the ground in a circle, the food and wine were placed on the wood pile, and everyone ate lively. The main thing is that the food is good, and many of the dishes have never been seen before. It's a joy to eat. Sukingyu listened to everyone talking about the food and wine as they left, thinking about opening a small restaurant in the market town. Everyone in the mountains seems to have bulging pockets, so they should be willing to give up a few coins to try something new. Sukingyu's wedding made Sukingyu think of another way to make money. I don't know why I want to save money so much. I always feel like I don't have enough money. On the third day after her marriage, Sukinglu returned to her parents' home. Seeing the happy smile on her face, Sukinglu felt happy for her. She is still young, at the age when she needs to be loved. That's fine. After returning to the door ceremony, Sukinglu and Wei Fuqian almost treated Wei's house as an inn. Except for going home to sleep, they almost stayed at Su's house. Firstly, they were afraid that Yaya would not adapt, and secondly, the couple would come to Sukinglu for work during the day. Sure enough, Yaya became happy again when she saw that her mother was no different from before after she got married. Wei Fuqian was also kind to her, and the child gradually gained some fatherly love. After Wei Fuqian became his brother-in-law, Sukinglu also left the outside affairs to him. She spoke and let others take action. Otherwise, relying on her alone would be a bit ineffective. Everything in the mountains is going on in an orderly manner, the situation is getting better and better, and Sukinglu's small restaurant has also opened in the market town. The various dishes prepared have never been seen by people in the mountains. The business is better than Sukinglu expected, and many people come in every day. On the first day of opening, the small restaurant was packed with people from the mountain. First, the mountain people are no longer short of food and can have enough to eat. Second, after selling the mountain products for money, they are willing to eat and drink. Third, after staying in the mountains for a long time, I also have a curiosity for novelty. The lobby was full of people, keeping the kitchen staff busy. Every day before mealtime, the small restaurant is packed with people. Sukinglu originally only wanted to cook Chinese food. After all, the mountain people had to climb the mountain back to their homes. The road in the mountains at night is not easy either. But unexpectedly, everyone was so enthusiastic that one meal a day was no longer enough, so they added dinner. Shopkeeper Ding looked at the grand scene of the small restaurant and couldn't help but feel sad. Why didn't he think of it earlier? The mountain people now have money in their pockets. I am willing to eat and drink. If he, Yongfen, opens a restaurant next to him, will Mrs. beat him? The businessman looked at the prosperous business, but he couldn't get involved, and he was scratching his head. Life in the mountains was peaceful, but outside, following the death of the late emperor, undercurrents surged everywhere. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 306. In troubled times, rebels from all over the country raised their poles because they didn't have enough to eat. When I heard about Renzhou City, I planted grain last year and got hundreds of thousands of stones. This year we raised rice seedlings and planted early rice early this year. I heard that we also want to plant 2 crops of rice in one field. There was a surge of sentiment. 2 crops of rice? 2 crops in one place? How much grain will be collected? Is that true? It's not a fantasy, right? What fantasy? The sons of my uncle, aunt, second sister-in-law and 8th mother-in-law who live in the mountains all told me that in the mountains near Renzhou, the experiment of 2 crops in one field was successful, and the mountains could harvest 600 to 700 kilograms of grain in one season. One season? Then think about how much you can collect in 2 seasons. Still mountainous. If it were good farmland, how much would it be? Passed around, everyone was shocked. The people of Renzhou can have enough to eat, so they don't have to go hungry when going to Renzhou. Let's go to Renzhou. Go to Renzhou. When you are a beggar, someone will throw food out, so you won't be hungry. In addition to ordinary people, armies from all walks of life naturally want to go. After taking Renzhou, are you still worried that the army will be short of food? Are you still afraid that the soldiers will not have enough to eat? Starting from June, Renzhou was successively attacked by various armies. At first it was just intermittent, small groups of people. Later, the soldiers and horses became stronger and stronger, and more people came to capture the city. Relying on the thick walls of Renzhou city, Painian led the soldiers and people of Renzhou to resist wave after wave of attacks. After Sukinjao learned the news, he immediately transferred all the hundreds of people digging iron and stone in the mountains to Renzhou, as well as the 100 people who stayed in the market town to help make weapons. Let them listen to Painian's arrangements. At the same time, various villages have also strengthened their vigilance to prevent bandits from invading. Sure enough, Renzhou could not be attacked for a long time, and a small group of bandits turned to attack the mountains. Sukingyu led the mountain people to repel them one by one. Now Ma Xian is helping to train the young people in each village, which is quite effective. Moreover, each village has excellent weapons, and everyone has one, including the elderly and children. The trench in front of the village gate was also dug wider and deeper. It was so watery that no one knew how deep it was. Unless the bandits come with small boats when they enter the mountains. Otherwise, there is no way to approach the mountain gate. As soon as they got closer, they were blocked by waves of iron arrow formations. Gradually, the saying came out that none of the 70 villages in Jiangdong can be broken. There is a saying that the mountain people are cunning and fierce in fighting, and the barbarians take advantage of the danger to resist them, and the bandits dare not enter. It spread more and more widely. Let a group of green forest heroes who covet the food in the mountains look at the mountains and sigh. Sukingyu led the mountain people in Lianzai to block the bandits' attacks one after another. The mountain people gained confidence and became more courageous as they fought. However, Renzhou had blocked so many rounds of attacks and gradually became exhausted. Painian's letters to Jiangxi observation envoy Yang Bai were like nothing. Sending people to the surrounding areas to ask for help was too perfunctory, and no governor was willing to send troops to support one or two. Don't you know that the lips are dead and the teeth are cold? Renzhou was destroyed, what good could be left in the surrounding states? Painian felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, feeling chilly. Under his rule, Renzhou finally regained its prosperity. The people finally had enough to eat and no longer had to leave their hometowns. But who would have thought that this would make people jealous and come to rob him? Once the capital is destroyed and a large number of people flee, is it necessary for Renzhou, the governor's office, and his governor to exist? Painian felt sad. But at the same time, a surge of pride and a desire to live and die with Renzhou emerged in vain. Once he was the governor of Renzhou, he would be the governor of Renzhou until his death. Sukingnao was extremely anxious when she learned that Renzhou was besieged. After discussing with Ma Xian, he was asked to take 50 of his men and 200 young men from each village to support them. Attack the enemy from the rear of Renzhou. The support from Lianzai made the officers and soldiers guarding the city of Renzhou heave a sigh of relief. Painian was filled with emotion and looked up to the sky with a long sigh. Sukingyu, Lianzai, fortunately, we still have you. The support from the joint village defeated the plan of the siege bandit army, and also gave the soldiers defending the city a great relief. However, there were too many soldiers and horses from all walks of life besieging the city, and there was a stalemate for a while. I am afraid that if the siege lasts for a long time, the city of Renzhou will not be able to resist. Sukingyu and Painian were so anxious that smoke was rising from their throats. Shangguan, who couldn't wait to come to Renzhou for a long time, sent people to support him, fearing that Yang Bai would really give up on Renzhou. In July, Renzhou was besieged for a month. Just when morale was low, Ma Mingguan personally led an army of 2 horses to invite support. Immediately boosted the morale of the soldiers defending the city of Renzhou. Ma Mingguan's 20,000 elite troops fought fiercely with the besieging armies for several days, and finally defeated the 50,000 bandit troops besieging the city with 20,000 troops. The crisis in Renzhou was solved. Ma Mingguan took back some of the surrendered troops, purged the army, and continued his efforts, killing them all the way. In 2 months, Jizhu, Xinzhou, Reizhou, Fuzhou, plus Renzhou were captured, and 5 states were in hand. The news reached Yizhang, and the Jiangxi observation made Yang Bai regretful. He just wanted to sit back and wait until Painian couldn't hold on any longer before sending troops to support him. So that Painian knows that he can't do everything as he wants, and it is very dangerous not to have him as a superior in his eyes. You have to push him into the mud, and when he is desperate and wants to commit suicide, Yang Bai will reach out to him again. By then, Painian will definitely shed tears of gratitude to him and obey his orders from now on. But unexpectedly, she made a wedding dress for Ma Mingwen. Let him not only win Renzhou, but also the other 4 states in Jiangxi. Shizi, hateful. I was so angry that my chest was filled with turbid breath. Finally, there was such a big granary in Renzhou, so Ma Mingwen picked it up. Yang Bai was unwilling to give in and personally led an army of 50,000 to take Renzhou back. But for Ma Mingwen, Renzhou has fallen into his pocket, can he let it out easily? Yang Bai knew that Renzhou was a big granary, could Ma Mingwen know that? He now has tens of thousands of troops and horses at his disposal. With so many people and horses, they are not allowed to eat or drink. So the 2 big guys fought fiercely for several times. The fighting was fierce. In the end, Ma Mingwen's army, which had strong soldiers and horses and was diligent in training, won. In the end, Yang Bai only brought less than 30,000 troops and horses, and returned to Yizhang in despair. Ma Mingwen took advantage of his victory and captured Chuzhou and Hangzhou. A man named Ma managed to acquire the 7 states of Jiangdong within 3 months, and the news immediately spread throughout the country. It also spread to the capital Chang'an. Wu Quanzhong, who was already inferior to 1 person and superior to 10,000 people, and regarded the new emperor as his puppet, naturally heard about it. Find out Ma Mingwen's information. When I saw it, I was happy. Have a grudge against Zhuo Qiao? How many parents and adopted children died on the battlefield? Did the dynasty treat him unfairly? Okay, it plays into his heart. As soon as this information was retrieved, Ma Mingwen? Wu Quanzhong was impressed. In the past, when he was still fighting and causing trouble in the countryside, Ma was already a well-known general in Zhuo dynasty. The family had been loyal for generations, helping Zhuo dynasty guard the border and defend the city, and resisted many foreign invasions. But in the end, he was the only one left in the Ma family. Tragic, really miserable. I heard that Ma Mingwen helped a lot when Wang Hu and Zhuo Jun were fighting. Okay. Very good. Wu Quanzhong immediately drafted an edict. After drawing it up, he only took it to the new emperor for a look. He stamped the seal himself. After stamping it, he sent someone to deliver it to Ma Mingwen. Wu Quanzhong has his own little plan. If he can win over Ma Mingwen, it will be of great benefit to his future. Ma Mingwen has several states in his hands, and all the armies are jealous. They all stared at him. Let's have a fight with him from time to time. You, Ma Mingwen, can take back 5 states today, but we can't take them back again. And you are not standing upright. How dare you reach out to the imperial courts, prefectures and counties? Most of them crusade against him in the name of justice. Ma Mingwen led his team to fight with various armies almost every day. On this day, Ma Mingwen received a document from the court. He thought it was coming to attack him again. He didn't want to read it and planned to throw it aside. After thinking about it, I picked it up. Seeing this, I was shocked. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 307. Zhenyi's Jidushi. I read it wrong? Ma Mingwen read it again, it was correct. But what the hell is the Zhenyi's Jidu envoy? Why did the imperial court appoint him as Zhenyi's Jidushi? Brain, what's that? Ma Mingwen took the edict and sat on a chair. He was stunned for several hours, puzzled. The imperial court didn't send a large army to suppress him, but instead appointed him as Chinese Jidushi? Are you still willing to hand over the land of Renzhou, Jizhu, Xinzhou, Reizhou, Fuzhou, Hongzhou, Chuzhou, and Qizhou into his hands? Does this mean that Qizhou has been recognized by the imperial court and has passed the road of enlightenment? This is how it is said. Ma Mingwen frowned. He didn't want to have anything to do with Shuochao at all. He just wanted to seize the states with his troops and fight with the imperial troops to hasten its demise. It doesn't matter whether he is said to be a rebellious minister or a traitor, or said to have forgotten his ancestors. His family died so tragically, who cares anymore? When the military advisor saw that Ma Mingwen had not left the military tent for a long time, he came to see him. After learning the contents of the edict, he couldn't help but be happy. Marshal, these 7 states are truly ours. Without this edict, these 7 states would not be ours. Ma Mingwen threw the edict aside with some disdain. No, the marshal thought, it's better to have this edict than not to have it at all, right? Moreover, it will be easier for us to do things after passing the Minglu. The military advisor was overjoyed. How can it be the same with an edict and without an edict? An imperial edict is a document recognized by both the emperor and the court and published to the whole country. Once the armies from all walks of life knew that the imperial court had issued an edict to Ma Mingwen and officially recognized him as Chinese Jidushi, who would dare to attack him in the name of standing up for the imperial court? Although the Shuo dynasty is now in a precarious situation and is in danger, the imperial power is still there, so Xiao Xiao still dare not make too many mistakes. Well, that's great. After listening to the military advisor's persuasion, Ma Mingwen also realized that with this edict, it would be much easier for him to do things. Although he is still disdainful, it is easier for his subordinates to do things. Now that he has tens of thousands of troops, he can no longer think only about himself. He has done many things, and no one will criticize him in the name of righteousness anymore. No one calls him a traitor. Then he no longer has to tie his hands and feet. In the past, some people were recruited into the army, but they didn't dare to let go. The news of appointing Ma Mingwen as Chinese Jidushi spread immediately. There is a completely different situation between surrendering to the Chinese Jidushi and surrendering to the rebels. As soon as Ma Mingwen's name as Chinese Jidushi was announced, rebels and people from all directions came to vote. Soon, Ma Mingwen's number increased from 20,000 to 50,000, then to 80,000, and then to 100,000. Immediately the troops and horses became strong. Ma Mingwen received a sealing edict from the imperial court and his identity was recognized. Painian and Suqingyu were both happy for him. Ma Mingwen has made things easier, so why not Painian and Suqingyu? Painian no longer has to worry about not receiving a letter from Shangguan. Renzhou was under the name of the Chinese Jidu envoy. His official position was much higher than that of the observer envoy, and he was protected by 100,000 troops. What did Renzhou have to fear? Don't you dare to grow food, are you afraid that Xiao Xiao will cause trouble? Does not exist. After Renzhou was liberated, Painian was like a bird whose cage was opened, and he immediately felt refreshed both physically and mentally. Prepare to spread your wings and fly high. Immediately began to make great efforts to improve Renzhou's people's livelihood and economy. The people of Renzhou are settled, the roads are peaceful, and merchants are willing to do business in Renzhou and surrounding cities. Renzhou city immediately became visibly prosperous. Ma Mingwen was granted the title of Chinese Jidushi, and Suqingyu was even more happy. She originally just wanted to make some small money quietly and save it, so that she could have enough to eat, always have money in her pocket, and be able to go out freely, that's all. Ordinary people have no ambition to dominate the world. Her godfather has become a military governor and has an army of 100,000 in his hands. How can she still be afraid of a hairball? Are there not enough manpower over there in the mine? Trick. A notice calling for help was immediately put up. 6 hours a day, 1 day off and 1 day off, 1 tael a month's wages, including food and accommodation, 3 meals a day, and 2 sets of new clothes every season. If you work for half a year and want to go home, you will be paid another 20 taels for travel expenses. Niang Le, the notice has just been put up, not to mention inside the market town, there is a long queue at the door of the market town. The mountains around the market town were full of people, and the mountain residents came to queue up late at night. I'm afraid I'll be too late to catch up with such good things. Renzo is peaceful, shopkeeper Ding is happily chatting with the village owners with his men, wandering around the shops of each village, trying to see what fresh mountain products each village has, so that they can buy and transport them out to make money. Then ask them what they lack, and then help them find it from outside the mountains to make another fortune. We were chatting happily and noisily. When I turned around, I saw that the door was blocked and I couldn't get out. What's wrong? I squeezed over and asked, what? When did people rush to recruit people to mine? Aren't you afraid that there will be no return? Has the world changed? Shopkeeper Ding was so shocked. He was so frightened by the dense crowd that he couldn't recover for a long time. Standing on tiptoes, I looked at the sign. Well, I couldn't see it. It's okay, just because he can't see it doesn't mean he can't hear it either. Few people in the mountains are literate. Once a notice is put up, Xiang Zhen will have someone stand on a chair at the door and read it to the mountain people from time to time. Shopkeeper Ding heard this and said, Niang Le, when did you get such a good salary when digging a mine? If it weren't for the fact that he was working on the Yongfeng and the salary was pretty good, he would have wanted to apply for the job. Madam Su, this brain, tisk tisk, what are you thinking about? Looking at the crowd again, there were so many people that it made him want to find a mine for his boss. Suddenly an idea struck me. There were so many people who needed food, drink, clothing, and supplies. Slap your thigh, girl. Hurry up and ask someone to send you some more oil, salt, cloth, etc. for daily use. Hurry. He ordered in succession. So many people. Niang Le, thank you Madam Su. His Yongfen #1 profit will surely reach a higher level this year. Although the business in Renzhou City is now a few steps ahead of theirs compared to other states, who still thinks they have less money. Isn't it nice to receive a thick dividend at the end of the year? Doesn't he want it? That must be necessary. Immediately ordered his men to return to Renzhou City to transfer goods. Suking Nao didn't know what was going on in shopkeeper Ding's mind. I just want Renzhou to be stable and free to do some things, and there is no need to be quiet at the iron mine. Who would have thought that a notice recruiting people was put up? There were so many people that Xiang Zhen and several of the waiters were almost overwhelmed. In just 2 days, 300 people were recruited and sent to Tishiken one after another. Although the people from outside are recruited, they may not even need to pay monthly money. They are only responsible for eating and drinking, and countless people want to come over. But Sukingyu still wanted to recruit people in the mountains. Now that the farm is slack, the mountain people living in this mountain are all within her jurisdiction, so she naturally wants to make them rich first. We still need to protect our own people first, and let them become rich first. She has gained a lot from these mountains and the mountain people, and naturally she wants to give something back to them. Except for digging iron and stone, there is no need to do it quietly, and other things can naturally be done boldly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 308. The title of Jenny's Jadushi is very useful. Now the number of joint villages has reached 45. Not only the heroes from outside came to join Ma Mingwen, but also various villages in the mountains sent letters of surrender. Su Qingyu accepted whatever was inside the Jiangzi mirror, and confiscated whatever was outside the boundary. With the name of his godfather as the Jadu envoy, Su Qingyu led his people to develop the mountain economy in a big way. The second and third phases of the market town project have been started one after another. The area of the entire market town has more than doubled. Ma Mingwen has many soldiers and horses, and they need food and drink, which is a huge number every month. Renzhou alone is not enough to support the population of 7 states. Having successfully grown grain last year, Ma Mingwen asked Pei Nian to take charge of the general affairs of 7 states and help the other 6 states grow grain. The mountains of Qizhu were entrusted to Su Qingyu, and she was asked to lead the mountain people to dig out the treasures in the mountains. Those who can grow grain will grow grain, and those who can't will grow tea or something else to develop other economies. Su Qingnao also knew that Ma Mingwen was under great pressure, but now that she had Ma Mingwen's protection, it was easier for her to do things. I also want to save more money. Who doesn't want to save money? So I am very busy every day. On Ma Mingwen's side, he won 7 states and was granted the title of envoy to Chinese. He no longer had to wander around and had no fixed residence. He set up his residence in Reizhou, which was only 1 state away from Renzhou. In view of Wang Hu's experience and lessons, he also knew that as a general, he could not just know how to kill, and he could not understand economic and general affairs. Wang Hu has been in trouble several times to the point where the army has no food. This cannot happen to him. Fortunately, he has Pei Nian and Su Qingyu. Therefore, they strongly support whatever they need. Ma Mingwen's military advisor Zhen Yanfang didn't know much about Pei Nian and Su Qingyu, so he was a little worried about Ma Mingwen trusting them so much. I feel that the power of the two should be dispersed. Centralization of power can easily make one person more powerful. If one person is powerful and the other party is mainly against the guest, it will be more troublesome. Ma Mingwen didn't want to hear it. One of them is a good friend I grew up with, and the other is my goddaughter. She has provided food supplies to my army several times, and she is no different from my own daughter. But we still need our people. Our people? Who are my Ma Mingwen's people? His beloved wife and children were all dead. Which one is his? They are my people. When Zhen Yanfang saw that Ma Mingwen was sad, he stopped talking. After a while, seeing Ma Mingwen immersed in his past thoughts again, he had to interrupt. Marshal, before we were just dissatisfied with Zhou dynasty and had small fights, but now we have real power, some people have food, and we have sophisticated weapons. Ma Mingwen waved his hand and interrupted him. I didn't think too much about it. The marshal can't think about it now. Just talk about the marshal's back. Many generals have asked about the young master. Ma Mingwen knew what he meant. I also know what everyone means. In the land of 7 states, Chinese Jadushi, an army of more than 100,000 people, and not even a single heir behind him. Yanfang, I know what you mean. Then, Marshal, why, Mrs. Kui is in her prime of youth. Ma Mingwen waved to him. Seeing that he didn't want to talk anymore, Zhen Yanfang had to stop talking, clasped his fists and left. Doesn't Ma Mingwen know that Kui Yueying is in her prime, young and beautiful? When his wife chose Kui Yueying to serve him, she naturally had to choose from thousands of people. But what the lady didn't know was that she was in poor health at that time, and after giving birth to a child, he was afraid that she would have to give birth to another child if she had a hard time conceiving again. Later, his wife kept talking about wanting a daughter, which is why he felt so guilty. And he has no feelings for Kui Yueying between men and women. When Shen Liniang was around, she was the only one in his eyes and heart. When Shen Liniang died, his heart also died and he followed her. Ma Mingwen returned to the backyard from the front hall, where Kui Yueying was waiting on the porch with a lantern. Master. Well, why don't you rest? Master hasn't slept yet, how can I sleep? Don't wait for me. I have a lot of things to do and I'll be busy all night long. Yes. After saying that, he followed Ma Mingwen, took a few steps wrong, and showed him the way. Ma Mingwen walked in front with his hands behind his back. Kui Yuing looked at him and raised the lantern in his hand. Master, look, the candle in this lantern was sent by Qing Lao, and it is very unique. Ma Mingwen paused and looked at the lantern next to him. Did Qing Lao send it to you? Yes. I gave a lot of them. They are of various sizes. What's strange is that they are made into various shapes, thick, thin, round, square, tall, short, and in various colors. Some even have several colors. There is also a scented candle, which makes the whole room smell great. I'll carry it. Ma Mingwen held the lantern in his hand. Peeked into the lampshade. Qing Lao is interested. No, with her at the rear, not only is the army no longer short of food, but the home is no longer short of lights and candles, and there is endless mountain food to eat. After hearing this, Ma Mingwen curled up his lips and felt a little happy. Follow Kui Yuing's footsteps and show her the way. Kui Yuing felt warm in her heart. He looked at Ma Mingwen and then said, Qing Lao gave us a lot of things. Before we were in the army, we didn't have anything good to give her. Now all the states have sent a lot of rare things. I want to pack some and give them to her. King Lao and Xiaobao will send it. Well, tomorrow you take people to the warehouse to pick up some things for her mother and son. Now her parents, brothers and sisters are also with her, so you can also pick some for them. Don't worry, I will. Last time I received a letter from my mistress, saying that Xiaobao was very happy with the pony that the master sent me. He was just a little old, and he wanted to hit the horse and gallop away. He refused to sleep at night. He thought of sleeping with the pony in the stable. No matter how hard Qing Lao pulls him, he refuses to go back to the house. I just want to laugh when I think about it. After hearing this, Ma Mingwen laughed softly. This kid. I heard that being stubborn can be a headache. Last time he insisted on riding a horse with me in the mountains. He is quite courageous at such a young age. Ma Mingwen raised the corner of his mouth. Kui Yuing is looking forward to giving Ma Mingwen a child, and naturally she likes children very much. I talked to Ma Mingwen about Xiaobao all the way. Go to the warehouse tomorrow to see if there are any books suitable for children to play with. Pick some up for Xiaobao and send them to me. Then go to my study to see if there are any books suitable for children's enlightenment. Xiaobao is already over 4 years old, so he is right. It's time for enlightenment. The mountains are closed, so don't delay him. Yes. The two slowly returned to the bedroom. Kui Yuing made the bed, turned around and said softly to Ma Ming, who was sitting in the chair, Master, it's late at night, it's time to rest. Ma Mingwen glanced at her. Under the light, Kui Yuing's pink cheeks seemed to be covered with a layer of gentle and lingering light. Ma Mingwen hurriedly turned his head and went straight to bed. Kui Yuing blew out the candle and then got into bed. Seeing Ma Mingwen sleeping on his back, he thought for a while, stretched out his catkins and hugged him. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 309. As soon as Kui Yuing reached into Ma Mingwen's clothes, she was held back by Ma Mingwen. Kui Yuing was stunned for a moment, then stretched out her hand to move. Ma Mingwen pinched her catkins harder. Master. Kui Yuing was a little embarrassed, and a small cry sounded from behind Ma Mingwen. Sir, why? I know I'm not as good as Miss, but Miss has already gone. In the darkness of the night, not a single ray of light penetrated the curtain. Ma Mingwen stared into the void for a long time in the dark night. Then he sighed softly and took Kui Yuing, who was sobbing quietly and suppressedly, into his arms. Kui Yuing felt even more aggrieved by his hug and burst into tears. Ma Mingwen patted her. When she gradually calmed down, she spoke warmly, Yuying, you are fine. It's me who is not. Kui Yuying sobbed, I don't ask the master to forget the miss, I just want to take care of the master for the miss and give him another child. I don't want the master to have nothing on his knees. The master likes Xiaobao so much. Ma Mingwen was silent for a long time and finally said, Yuying, I can't give you a child. Master, did Yuying do not do enough? No, it's me, I can't give birth. Master. Kui Yuying heard Ma Mingwen say this for the first time. So, is it because Ma Mingwen has been reluctant to touch her for a long time because he hurt his body? Kui Yuying stood up from his arms and was very surprised, Master, when did it happen? Was it injured on the battlefield? Well. Yes, Ma Mingwen didn't say anything in the end. He didn't tell his wife Lianiang, and naturally he didn't want to mention it to anyone else. On his wedding night with Lianiang, he promised her that in this life, he only wanted the child she gave birth to. He did it? Master. Kui Yuying lay back in Ma Mingwen's arms. I was just shocked when I heard it, but now I can't help but feel sorry for him. Master, I'm sorry for you. No, it's hard on you. I asked you before and wanted to send you away, but you didn't want to. I can't give you a child. You are still young and will be lonely and helpless for the rest of your life, but you must stay. Master, I like you. I don't regret staying with you. Master, don't drive me away. It's okay if you don't have children. It's enough for me to have you. Well. Ma Mingwen let out another long sigh. In the end nothing was said. He just patted her gently and said, go to sleep. Jiananja town is peaceful here. Lu Bachan was having a hard time. I don't know if it was Ma Mingwen who inspired Wu Quanzhong. After he appointed a Chinese Jidushi, it was as if the Tianling cap had been opened and people suddenly became transparent. De Feng is a subordinate close to him, winning over people from all sides in the DPRK. Anyone who flatters Wu Quanzhong will be promoted and make a fortune. And those who dared to voice their dissatisfaction with his monopoly of power and dare to confront him were punished with derogatory punishments. Now everyone in the court knows only Wu Quanzhong but not the new emperor. If there's anything important, don't go to the new emperor, go to Wu Quanzhong. Wu Quanzhong ignored the former emperor's son and promoted the former emperor's half-brother to the throne, gaining greater power and gradually treating the new emperor as a puppet. In the past, I had drafted an edict and asked the new emperor to check it and use the seal. Now Wu Quanzhong can use the jade seal at will and use the seal very naturally. The new emperor looks less and less like an emperor. After not seeing the new emperor for a few days, everyone in the inner palace could not remember what the new emperor looked like. But Liang Wang Wu Quanzhong remembered everyone. King Liang was more active in handling political affairs than the new emperor, and he had to go to the inner palace several times a day. Those who were close to Liang Wang Wu Quanzhong, all chickens and dogs ascended to heaven, and those who disliked him, such as Kui Sheng. Life was quite difficult. Wu Quanzhong first transferred 2 of Kui Sheng's 4th-grade generals and 20,000 troops to other towns for inexplicable reasons. Later, he was inexplicably short of his military rations and pay. Now Kui Sheng only has 40,000 troops left. The only generals under his command were Lu Bachan, a 3rd-rank general, a 5th-rank general, and several 6th and 7th-rank lieutenants. Which festival town is like Kui Sheng? Originally, Wu Quanzhong wanted to send Lu Bachan away, but Lu Bachan was a good student and sensed something was wrong, so he performed it himself in front of the eunuch who came to deliver the order. He was so happy that he fell off his horse. He also quarreled with Kui Sheng who came to visit him, saying that Kui Sheng was not good to him. He hid the good horses and gave him bad horses and old horses to be ridden by a 3rd-grade general. This was blatant suppression. He wants to be transferred to Chang'an. Go to the capital. I will no longer live in Fengxiang where the wind blows and eats the dirt, and I will no longer suffer the evil spirit of a bird. He also asked the internal officials to carry him to see His Royal Highness the King of Liang. He was going to the capital to do the work of His Highness the King of Liang. When the eunuch who came to deliver the order saw that Lu Bachan had broken his leg after falling, he was howling and unable to walk. What did the King of Liang want to do with a useless person? It would be nice to know that he had a rift with Kui Sheng. The eunuch had no expression on his face, turned around and led the people away. He didn't pay any attention to Lu Bachan crying and yelling behind him. It wasn't until everyone was out of sight that Lu Bachan put aside his pretense and looked at Kui Sheng with a solemn expression. Wu Quanzhong is guarding against them. What's the purpose of breaking up Feng Xiang's army? Is it because Feng Xiang is too close to Chang'an and he is afraid that Feng Xiang's army will ruin his affairs? Not good. Kui Sheng's heart was heavy. In a blink of an eye, he saw Lu Bachan stretching one of his legs straight out, and he was furious again. It's just a show, it doesn't cost so much. My leg is broken, will it heal in a few months? What if something happens, will these tens of thousands of troops be handed over to others? Lu Bachan was slapped hard by him and was stunned. After reacting, he jumped out of bed and walked around him several times. Would I be so stupid as to break my leg for some unrelated people? 2 years ago, I wanted to see my wife so much, but I didn't even break my leg because I wanted to retire from the army. Now it will be because of Wu Quanzhong. Broken leg. Kui Sheng rolled his eyes at him. I think you are just stupid. Humph, I'm not stupid enough to deceive that person. Lu Bachan gestured with his hand at an important position and made a sweeping motion. Kui Sheng was speechless. Don't want to pay attention to him. Seeing that Kui Sheng stopped talking, Lu Bachan started wandering around the camp. Marshal, something is wrong. Wu Quanzhong has made it clear that he wants to break up our army and divide us. Aren't you afraid of Tibetan invasion? Look at when Tibet invaded in large numbers in the past 2 years. It was just a small fight. Wu Quanzhong was sure of the stability of the border and transferred all the men and horses of the Fengxiang army away from my account. Hateful. Wu Quanzhong was promoted to a high-ranking general after being demoted to a general. Hateful. Lu Bachan's brows furrowed tightly. This won't work. I'm afraid Wu Quanzhong will send people over again. If they are transferred away under another name, Fengxiang army really has no one left. Then what do you think we should do? Kui Sheng was at a loss for words. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 310. Can Lu Bachan be willing to watch the troops he trained with his own hands being transferred away by Wu Quanzhong? But Wu Quanzhong used the emperor's order as an excuse. Who dared to bear it? No more brains. Wu Quanzhong dared to transfer people away just to see that the border would be stable and no one would disturb the border during this period. Read. Fengxiang and Tubo were on the border. Once Fengxiang was broken, Chang'an would not be safe. Since Wu Quanzhong used Fengxiang's stability as an excuse to transfer people away, then he would give him instability so that he would not be able to sleep peacefully in Chang'an. So, every day, Lu Bachan and his men dressed up as Tibetan soldiers and harassed the border area. Then he brought someone to chase him under false pretenses. Kui Sheng was very cooperative and gave full power to Lu Bachan. Lu Bachan led the performance, so he cooperated to the best of his ability and frequently wrote to the court, saying that Tubo was seizing control and disturbing the people. Feng Xiangjun could no longer resist it. Please send people to support quickly. If the horsepower is insufficient, can the Fengxiang army retreat to the capital? Feng Xiang's army retreated back to the capital? Are the borders no longer guarded? Let foreigners invade? Let people attack Chang'an? How about that? Wu Quanzhong's great cause has not yet begun. How can he let foreigners interfere with his great cause? Fengxiang army wants someone? Here, return the 20,000 horses that were originally transferred away. Not enough military rations. Give. Large quantities of military rations and weapons were frequently shipped to Fengxiang. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Liu Bachan did not relax. From time to time, he would stage a drama in which foreign invaders invaded the border, directed and acted by himself. In this way, he saved Fengxiang's tens of thousands of troops. In the court, Wu Quanzhong was still very powerful. People who were dissatisfied with Wu Quanzhong formed their own faction, which they called King Liu, while those who flattered Wu Quanzhong and flattered Wu Quanzhong were called turbid currents by King Liu. The two factions are fighting openly and secretly in the court, confronting each other, and looking down upon each other. Today the east wind will overwhelm the west wind, and tomorrow the west wind will overwhelm the east wind. The entire court was in a foul atmosphere. The leader of King Liu was Pei Shu, one of the three prime ministers, while the representatives of Zhualiu were Lu Kan, another prime minister, and Li Zhen, the military advisor under Wu Quanzhong. On this day, due to personnel changes, King Liu's Zhualiu became quarrelsome. The position of minister of Taikang Temple was vacant, and Wu Quanzhong proposed that his confidant Zhang Tingfen should take the position. However, Prime Minister Pei Shu believed that the minister of Taikang Temple was in charge of etiquette and diplomatic affairs, and had been held by civilian officials since ancient times, while Zhang Tingfen was a military general, which was not suitable. He rejected Wu Quanzhong's proposal. Wu Quanzhong was already inferior to one person and superior to 10,000 people. He was very angry at Pei Shu's rejection. A group of so-called King Liu always come to hinder his hands and feet. Wu Quanzhong was determined to clean up these clear streams. Lu Kan, another prime minister of Zhualiu, had a very tense relationship with Pei Shu and could sense Wu Quanzhong's thoughts. Lu Kan took advantage of the changes in the stars and said to Wu Quanzhong, "This is caused by too many resentful people in the world. His Highness Prince Liang should kill them to stop the disaster." Military advisor Li Zhen also suggested, "Those King Liu people who are trying to sabotage us should kill them all." After Li Zhen finished speaking, Wu Quanzhong smiled and said nothing, knowing that what he was talking about touched his heart. Striking while the iron is hot, Li Zhen suggested to Wu Quanzhong, "This generation often calls itself a clear stream, so it is better to throw it into the Yellow River and make it a turbid one." Wu Quanzhong laughed and obeyed. "I just feel happy in my heart." 1 month later, Wu Quanzhong, in the name of the emperor, ordered more than 30 King Liu people including Pei Shu and Dugu Sun to gather at Baimei in Huazhu. Although the King Liu people knew that there must be something fishy about this trip. But they are pure people, different from Wu Quanzhong's rebellious officials and traitors. They were loyal to Shuo dynasty and loyal to the emperor. If the emperor asked them to go, they would go. I still have hope for the emperor in my heart, feeling that he will not get things done. Everyone happily accepted the appointment. Before Pei Shu and others arrived at Huazhu, Lu Kan had already led his troops to ambush there. "Can you let them go back once they're here?" Then he would quarrel with them in the court to hinder their hands and feet. Cannot. As a result, more than 30 unarmed King Liu officials were killed by Lu Kan and others. Not only that, but all their bodies were thrown into the Yellow River. They didn't even let their souls return to Chang'an, so they sank into the Yellow River forever. The ruling and opposition parties vibrate. Even the emperor who ignored court affairs knew about it in the inner palace. Wu Quanzhong dares to kill the prime minister? Kill those who have contributed to the court. There were still many officials at all levels who were filled with righteous indignation and had cold lips and teeth. They entered the palace one after another and begged the emperor to kill Wu Quanzhong. But can Wu Quanzhong admit it? Although he acquiesced, he did not take action. If you don't do anything, you are not guilty. Although he is not afraid of other people's irresponsible remarks, at this juncture, he does not want to risk the disapproval of the world and confront the entire world. First, it is detrimental to his great cause. Second, we don't want to leave an ugly mark in the history books. So Wu Quanzhong cried bitterly in front of the emperor, saying that his lax supervision had led to the Baimei disaster and that he deserved death, and asked the emperor to punish him. What can the emperor do? Wu Quanzhong covered the sky with one hand, and almost everyone in the court belonged to Wu Quanzhong. Everyone around him was completely eliminated by Wu Quanzhong. Could it be possible to go against him and let Wu Quanzhong eliminate him as the emperor again? In the end, the emperor could only follow Wu Quanzhong's wishes and make Wu Quanzhong the prime minister. 21 names including Suanwu, Xuanyi, Tianping, Huguo, Tianxiang, and Wushun were designated as the Wei Kingdom, and Wu Quanzhong was granted the title of King of Wei, adding juxi. Juxi are 9 kinds of ritual utensils given by the emperor to princes, ministers, and those with special merits. They are the highest courtesy. In the entire Shuo dynasty, nearly 300 years after the founding of the country, few people could get past juxi. But Wu Quanzhong got it very easily. From then on, it became even more powerful. King Liu was executed, and everyone in the court was angry at Wu Quanzhong but dared not speak out. The prince was very dissatisfied with the emperor's decision. Lu Shu, the eunuch next to him, gave the prince an idea and asked him to imprison Emperor Shuo, ascend the throne as emperor himself, and then kill Wu Quanzhong to restore peace to the court. The prince listened. But he never thought that Wu Quanzhong would know such hidden information before the prince and others could make a big move. Less than a month later, Wu Quanzhong led his troops to rescue Emperor Shuo, and beheaded the prince and more than 700 eunuchs including Lu Shu. The emperor escaped from death, and he was even more grateful for Wu Quanzhong's saving grace. He took Wu Quanzhong's hand and said, "The ancestral temple and the country were rebuilt by you, and I and my relatives were reborn by you." Therefore, Wu Quanzhong obeyed orders even more, and government orders were gradually handed over to Wu Quanzhong with full authority. In the court, it makes no difference whether there is an emperor or not. But apart from a prince, the emperor also had many sons. Wu Quanzhong couldn't sleep as he thought about it. Now King Liu was gone, and so was the prince, but there were still some unsightly things dangling in front of his eyes. So Wu Quanzhong was ready to take action again. Wu Quanzhong planned carefully. On this day, Wu Quanzhong asked the privy envoy Zhang Xuanhui to hold a banquet in Jikuke, and invited 9 princes including King De, King Qian and King Yi to the banquet in the name of offering sacrifices to the late emperor. The youngest of the 9 princes was only 9 years old and could not clearly judge the affairs of the court, so they all went to the banquet on time stupidly. I thought it was just an ordinary banquet. Who would have thought that once you come out, you can never go back? It was a rare occasion for the 9 brothers to get together to have fun and drink. However, Zhang Xuanhui secretly ordered people to strangle all the 9 princes to death and throw their bodies into the Jiku pond. The methods are extremely cruel. The biological mother of the 9 princes almost cried to death in the inner palace. When the emperor heard this, he was so shocked that he fell off the throne. The reason why the prince was killed was because the prince imprisoned him and was a treasonous person, so he just killed him, and the emperor did not feel any regret at all. But killing my 9 princes? The youngest prince is only 9 years old. What crime has he committed? Don't you, Wu Quanzhong, think too little of me as the emperor? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 311. 9 princes were hanged and their bodies were thrown into the Jiku pond as the sons and grandsons of the dragon. Read. This is too disrespectful of the emperor. No matter how indulged in pleasure Emperor Shuo was, no matter how shallow his royal family ties were, he was still fuming with rage at his own flesh and blood being treated so roughly and cruelly. Wandering around in the bedroom like a trapped animal. At this time, Emperor Shuo realized that Wu Quanzhong was a wolf, a vicious wolf. He has lured the wolf into the house. He is ashamed of his ancestors. There's always something to do. He couldn't just watch and do nothing, otherwise he would appear to be too cowardly an emperor. So Emperor Shuo drafted a secret edict overnight and ordered Kui Sheng, the military envoy of Fengxiang, Mu Kong, the military envoy of Hedong, and Wang Jian, the military envoy of Zishuan, to come to discuss state affairs. But it was too late. Wu Quanzong's eyes and ears were already in the inner and outer courts. Before Emperor Shuo's secret decree was sent out, it was intercepted by Wu Quanzong's people and sent to Wu Quanzhong to express his merits. After Wu Quanzhong read it, he immediately crumpled the secret decree into a ball and threw it into the brazier, and began to think of countermeasures. When things got to this point, he no longer wanted to kneel down and worship the emperor. Wouldn't it be better to have someone kneel down and worship him? One person under one person and over 10,000 people can no longer satisfy his ambition. Isn't it good to be among millions of people? Summer is here, and it's especially hot in Chang'an this year. The sun shines on the floor tiles in the palace, making them smoke. Wu Quanzhong suddenly had an idea and coerced the emperor to lure him to Luoyang for summer vacation. The emperor thought that the secret edict had been issued, and he waited for Kui Sheng and others to lead troops to kill Wu Quanzhong, and then everything would be fine. He is also willing to cooperate with Wu Quanzhong and play tricks with him. It just so happens that he also thinks it's too hot this year. But he didn't know that the secret decree he drafted was not even sent out of Chang'an, but even the inner palace. The emperor only thought that Kui Sheng and others would come with troops soon and drive out Wu Quanzong's people. It was one thing that he didn't want to be a director, but he never wanted to let Wu Quanzhong replace him and then change the dynasty. He was afraid that he would not be able to deal with his ancestors after his death. After leaving the palace gate, sitting on the dragon chariot, the emperor looked back at the palace wall through the yellow silk curtain. Still so towering and majestic. This is the world of his Li family, how can he allow others to change the dynasty? When he returns from summer vacation, this palace will still belong to his Li family. But Emperor Shuo could never go back, and never had the chance to sit on the dragon throne again. Wu Quanzhong had no patience at all. Not long after leaving Chang'an, he killed Emperor Shuo on the road in just one day. When the news reached Fengxiang, Kui Sheng was so shocked that he couldn't recover for a long time. Shizi, you are hateful. Wu Quanzhong, I will definitely make you pay with blood. Kui Sheng kowtowed 3 times in the direction of the imperial capital and put on his silk clothes again. Lu Bachan was ordered to order troops on the battlefield, and he would take the troops back to Chang'an to do justice for heaven. Lu Bachan was also so shocked by Wu Quanzong's thieves' ambition that he couldn't recover for a long time. God, this is so powerful. His wife always scolds him for being a scumbag, but he still knows the 3 principles and 5 principles. You, a surrender general, eliminated dissidents in the court in front of the people of the world, killed 30 officials including the prime minister, and dumped the bodies of 9 princes in Jigu Pond, and now you have trapped and killed the emperor in his palace. On the way. You Wu Quan are so loyal. Lu Bachan didn't waste any time, ordered his troops and horses, and led the team to march towards Chang'an in a hurry. As soon as the team set off, various news came back. I heard that Wu Quanzhong himself did not ascend the throne, but made Emperor Shuo's son the emperor. He was only a few years old and was not as high as the throne, but Wu Quanzhong ascended the throne. Then a few days after the young emperor ascended the throne, Wu Quanzhong forced the young emperor to give him the Zen throne. Dai Shuo proclaimed himself emperor. The founding name was Liang and the reign name was changed to Kaiping. Since the day Wu Quanzhong proclaimed himself emperor, the Shuo dynasty, which lasted for 290 years, was completely destroyed. Let the world be surprised. Wu Quanzhong first trapped and killed the emperor, then established a young emperor, and then allowed the young emperor to abdicate, so that he could be upright and fair. Show the world that it was the young emperor who abdicated the throne to him. He resigned several times, but the new emperor insisted, and there was nothing he could do. He had no choice but to manage the country for the young emperor reluctantly. It was clearly a usurpation of the throne, but it became a concession. He wanted to have an honest and upright background for his identity. Kui Sheng and Lu Baqin got the news on the way, gritted their teeth, and ordered the team to set off one after another. When they were still halfway to Chang'an, they met a group of people escaping from Chang'an. The prince, grandson, princess, and their entourage numbered over 1,000 people. Marshal Kui, help me. Kui Sheng and Lu Baqin were shocked when they learned that Wu Quanzhong had ordered people to chase them from behind. They looked at the dragon sons and grandsons who were being chased in a panic, and decisively turned their horses back to Fengxiang. Wu Quanzhong is a ruthless man, can he leave any legacy for himself? Cannot. So they sent a large army to encircle Fengxiang and surrounded Fengxiang. Kui Sheng and Lu Baqin were furious and did not want to associate with rebellious officials and traitors like Wu Quanzhong. I was very disdainful of his solicitation, refusing to hand over all the princes and grandsons. In this case, Wu Quanzhong did not intend to keep alive the Fengxiang army. Order people to attack the city. Lu Baqin led the army and fought 3 battles a day with Wu Quanzhong's men. The battles were extremely fierce, with each winning or losing and each other losing or losing. Wu Quanzhong continued to send more troops to Fengxiang. Half a month later, Fengxiang's army gradually became unable to resist. Lu Baqin took a look and realized that this was not going to work. Although Kui Sheng said he wanted to live and die with Fengxiang, he, Lu Baqin, was not a person who was greedy for life and afraid of death, but he had to do something. Find Kui Sheng, Marshal, this can't continue. We have to arrange for someone to send the prince and princess out of the city first. No. Once they are sent out, we will divide our troops to protect them. The Fengxiang army will have fewer troops and may not be able to withstand them. Moreover, if the news leaks out, Wu Quanzhong sends people to hunt them down, the consequences will be disastrous. Kui Sheng refused without thinking. He still had hope for Feng Xiangjun, who was pulling him up with one hand. After hearing the advice, Lu Baqin said, "We can live and die with Fengxiang, so why don't we let them join us? It's better to open the city gate now and surrender to Wu Quanzhong, maybe they will still have one life left. The soldiers don't have to die either." "No, I will never surrender to Wu Quanzhong," Kui Sheng sternly refused. Lu Baqin took a breath. "Marshal, I don't like Wu Quanzhong's style, and I will not surrender to him. But when we protect the prince and princess, don't we just want them to survive? If the city is destroyed, they will definitely die." Kui Sheng hesitated after hearing this. "What if the news leaks?" "Marshal, leave this matter to me. I will make arrangements. I guarantee that the news will never leak out." "You promise?" "I promise." "Okay, go ahead." Lu Baqin came to the army. After half a month of fierce fighting, everyone was a little tired. These soldiers were all personally selected by him. No matter how hard and tiring he trained them, they never complained. They are all his brothers, Lu Baqin. Let them escape with the prince and grandson, and maybe they can survive. Why bother to stay with him in Fengxiang? Lu Baqin quickly selected an elite army of 10,000 people, divided them into several groups, and led the princes and princesses to escape from Fengxiang. Previously, these soldiers followed Lu Baqin to pretend to be Tubo people and perform a show for Wu Quanzhong, so they were already very familiar with the road at the border. Lu Baqin made some arrangements and asked them to take the people away. He led his men to continue to defend the city. At this time, there were less than 30,000 soldiers and horses in the city. After another half-month, the city began to run out of food. Even the firewood for cooking was gone. So I had to dismantle the doors, windows, bedboards, and other wooden objects. Later, when we ran out of food, we dug up all the grass roots under the walls to eat. Wuquanzhong was surrounded, and countless people froze to death and starved to death. After being surrounded for another half-month, Fengxiang was defeated by Wuquanzhong's army. Fengxiang city was destroyed, but among the corpses of thousands of soldiers, the bones of Marshal Kui Sheng and Huihua General Lu Bachan were not found. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 312. News from Chang'an continued to be sent to Jenny's mansion. Read. When Ma Mingwen received the news of Lu Bachan's disappearance, his heart skipped a beat. The feeling of uneasiness came to him one after another. Lu Bachan is considered one of his most proud disciples. They have been with him since he was a child. Because his temperament is very similar to his youngest son, he and Liniang pay special attention and care to the little boy. Before Lu Bachan went to the battlefield, he gave him soft armor as a gift, hoping that he could survive the battlefield. Fengxiang was surrounded, tens of thousands of soldiers died, and Lu Bachan disappeared. Ma Mingwen put his hand on his forehead, feeling a sense of powerlessness welling up from deep in his heart. Is another person close to you about to leave? Qing now cannot be allowed to know this news. Some time ago, I received a letter from Qing now, saying that she had enlightened Xiaobao and that he had learned to recognize the word dad. I also know what dad is and I can ask him. No, we can't let her know the news. Ma Mingwen turned around and ordered Kui Yueying to be called. Kui Yueying's mentality also changed after she learned that Ma Mingwen could not have children. His attitude toward Ma Mingwen was no longer worrying about gains and losses. He already knew his situation, and his interactions with Ma Mingwen became quite generous. There is truly a feeling of a couple in times of need and a companion in old times. Knowing that she would never have an heir in this life, Kui Yueying's love for Xiaobao also grew stronger. When I have nothing to do, I like to pack up some food and clothing for him and send them to him. Master, are you looking for me? Ma Mingwen nodded. The early rice will be harvested soon at King Glao's side. I'm probably too busy at home during this period. In 2 days, the army will send someone to transport food. You can pack some things and send them to Xiaobao. Kui Yueying laughed. Okay. I will go and clean it up now. By the way, I want to ask Xiaobao how he is doing with the pony that the master gave him and whether it has grown up a little. Although Ma Mingwen's heart was heavy, he still twitched the corners of his mouth and said a few words to Kui Yueying about Xiaobao before waving Kui Yueying to go down. When Su Qingyu received Ma Mingwen's package, she was discussing with Su's father, Su Dehua, Wei Fuqing, and Xiang Shang about going to Renzhou to collect grain. Now that my godfather is in charge, there won't be any hungry refugees trying to harvest it this time. You can hire people nearby to help harvest it and dry it on the spot. My godfather will send someone to collect it? Okay. Dad, we have grown rice seedlings before. This is the first time we have experimented with 2 crops in one field. After harvesting the early rice, no matter how urgent it is to rush for time, don't rush to transplant the rice seedlings. You still need to ask someone to plow the ground deeply and dry the ground. Spread the fertilizer again before planting the seedlings. Don't be too hasty, as it may affect the yield. Father Su nodded while listening. Don't worry, Dad will remember it. Dad has been farming the land for decades, and he can tell at a glance whether it is fertile or not. Okay, leave it to Dad, I'll rest assured. After this discussion, everyone dispersed and made preparations. It would take them several days to go out this time. The 4 of them were sent out this time mainly because Lord Pei had to take care of the other 6 states, and the affairs of Renzhou were a bit too much to take care of, so she sent Xiang Shang and others to help. Moreover, After the surrounding areas of Renzo fell into Ma Mingwen's hands a few weeks ago, Su Qingyu bought dozens of hectares of fertile land in other states. This time, people had to go check it out and make arrangements for late rice. This was just discussed with Father Su and others. Over there, Xiaobao shouted and rushed towards her. Mom, Grandpa has sent a letter and gave Xiaobao many things. There is also a horse made of jade, which is very beautiful. Mom, look at it. Su Qingyu leaned over to catch him. When he stopped, he took the jade horse held in Xiaobao's hand and took a look. Hey, it was crystal clear and pure, like gelatin. The godfather was also willing to carve a horse out of such mutton fat jade and give it to Xiaobao to play with. This is mutton fat jade, it's valuable. Don't break it, your grandfather loves Xiaobao. Xiaobao hugged Xiaobao and nodded, well, Grandpa loves Xiaobao. Xiaobao has several ponies made of jade. Mom, are these jade horses as valuable as the little pony outside? Su Qingyu nodded at him, learning farming from a farming woman, and a woman who only cares about money. Even at such a young age, she would ask whether the little jade horse is worth money. I'm afraid your father doesn't want to beat you. Su Qingyu nodded, yes, if you sell this jade horse, you can buy several foals from outside. When Xiaobao heard this, his mouth opened wide. Is it so valuable? He looked back and forth at the jade horse in his hand. Hold her tightly in your arms. But I still like the living little pony outside. It can play with Xiaobao, and Xiaobao can grow up with him and watch him become a big horse. Even this jade horse can't get bigger. Su Qingyu laughed after hearing this. That little pony outside is also very precious. It took your grandfather a long time to find such a beautiful little pony. Mom, I know. My little pony is the most beautiful little pony in the world. No one can compare with it. Well, then you have to take good care of it and let it grow up with Xiaobao. When Xiaobao grows up, you can ride it? Xiaobao nodded heavily, okay. Xiaobao likes it the most and will take good care of it. I want to sleep with it, but my mother won't let me. I sleep with it, and I can also cover it with a quilt and won't let it. It's cold. Well. Didn't Mom say that the horse doesn't need to be covered with a quilt? It's not cold. He has thick fur on his body and is not afraid of the cold. Xiaobao just needs to feed him good food and drink. Okay. Mom, help me put this little jade horse away. I'm going to feed my pony some water. As soon as Su Qingyu took over his jade horse, the child ran out like the wind. Su Qingyu shook her head and smiled. After Xiaobao left, Su's mother walked in. Qing Lao, look at your godfather's gift of so many things. Our family hasn't bought any cloth this year, and there are also these rare things that my mother has never seen before. Su Qingzin turned over her hands and saw that there were all kinds of food, clothing, and necessities. The godfather now had the power in his hands, and many people were fawning over him. He sent a lot of them to Su Qingyu. Look at such good cloth. How could I be willing to cut it up and make clothes? If you don't cut it to make clothes, why keep it? After being cut off, your father refused to wear it. He said that he was living in the world, so why did he wear such good clothes? We can't have all the good clothes in our family, and your father is the only one who wears coarse cloth. He is not like us, like the people in our family. People. Su Qingjiao couldn't help but laugh. Mom, please pick out some fine cotton and take Qingxin to make some children's clothes for your sister. In a few months, your sister will also give birth to your grandson. Mother Su laughed and said, that's okay. I'll take Lu's wife to make it for your sister. Your sister is pregnant now and refuses to rest. She is busy every day. I have to arrange the clothes for the child. After saying that, he thought about it and said, Yaya is getting older too. Do you want Yaya and Qingxin to do needlework too? Well, let Yaya learn needlework. While Su King Nao was still thinking, Su's mother had already raised her voice and called out to Yaya and Ching Xing. The two men ran in immediately. Grandmother! Mom! Did you call me?